You ever notice that person in the room who barely says a word, but somehow knows everything? They remember who arrived late, who changed their tone mid-sentence, who laughed a little too hard at a joke that wasn't funny. Maybe that person is you. You're there, nodding, listening, absorbing. People talk at you, around you, sometimes even over you. And then later, when everyone's gone, your brain finally starts talking, replaying the moment, connecting dots, seeing patterns no one else noticed. And here's the funny part. People assume you're quiet because you have nothing to say, when in reality, you're quiet because you have too much to say, and you're deciding what's worth releasing. That habit, observing more than speaking, has a psychology behind it, and it's deeper than introvert or shy. There are different kinds of observers, different reasons silence feels safer, smarter, or more powerful. Maybe one of them is you, maybe more than one. Let's start with the first type. There's the strategic observer. This is the person who doesn't jump into conversations like a cannonball. They dip a toe in first. They listen. They watch how the room reacts. They notice who dominates the conversation and who gets interrupted. They clock who exaggerates, who deflects, who subtly competes. Imagine you're in a group discussion at work. Everyone's throwing ideas out rapidly, almost aggressively. You're quiet, not frozen, calculating. You're watching which ideas get praised and which get ignored. You're learning the unspoken rules before you play the game. Psychologically, this comes from pattern recognition and social intelligence. Strategic observers understand, consciously or not, that speaking too early costs information. Silence gives leverage. The more people talk, the more they reveal their priorities, insecurities, and blind spots. If this is you, you often speak less, but when you do, people suddenly go quiet because your words land, they're timed, they're informed, and sometimes they're uncomfortably accurate. Then there's another type, the emotional radar. This observer isn't tracking power dynamics as much as emotional shifts. You walk into a room and instantly sense tension, not because someone said something, but because someone didn't. A pause lasted too long. A smile didn't reach the eyes. A voice changed by half a note. You might not even know how you know. You just feel it. These people often grew up needing to read the room early. Maybe emotions around them were unpredictable. Maybe silence meant something important, so their nervous system learned to scan constantly. The result? You become someone who listens deeply, sometimes too deeply. You catch discomfort before words appear. You catch contradictions between what someone says and what they mean. The downside is that you may hesitate to speak because you're aware of the emotional ripple it could cause. You know words can shift the mood, and sometimes you don't want to be responsible for that shift. So you stay quiet, protective, observing. And then there's the third kind, the internal processor. This is the person whose mind works like a delayed response system. You hear the conversation, you understand it, but your best thoughts don't arrive on schedule. They come later, in the car ride home, in the shower, at 2:17 a.m. You're not slow, you're thorough. When people talk fast, you're still integrating the first half of what they said while they're already on the third topic. Jumping in feels premature, like interrupting a movie before the plot makes sense. Psychologically, this reflects a deep processing cognitive style. You don't skim reality, you analyze it, you connect ideas. You want internal clarity before external expression. That's why you often regret silence after the moment passes. You think, I should have said something, but at the time, you were still building the thought. If this is you, silence isn't avoidance, it's incubation. Then there's a type people misunderstand the most, the selective speaker. This person can talk, they just don't want to talk about everything, or with everyone. They know that speaking creates expectations, opinions, interpretations. Once words are out, they belong to the room, and not everyone deserves access to your inner world. So you observe first. You decide who's safe, who listens,
who twists words, who uses information as currency. This isn't insecurity, it's discernment. Psychologically, selective speakers value internal autonomy. They protect their thoughts the way others protect their time or energy. Speaking is a form of exposure, and they don't expose themselves casually. If you relate to this, you probably open up deeply, but only in rare spaces. And when you do, people are surprised by how much depth you are carrying quietly. But here's the twist most people miss. Some observers aren't quiet because they feel inferior. They're quiet because they feel independent. They don't need constant validation through speech. They don't need to dominate attention to feel real. Their sense of self is internal, not performative. In a culture that rewards loudness, this gets mistaken for passivity, or disengagement, or mystery. But often it's the opposite. Observers are engaged at a level others aren't. They're watching behavior instead of reacting to it. They're listening for patterns instead of applause. And yes, sometimes silence comes from caution, sometimes from fatigue, sometimes from past experiences where speaking had consequences. But it's not a flaw. It's a style of relating to the world. Here's something subtle you might recognize. Observers often speak most when the conversation turns meaningful, when it stops being noise, when it becomes real. Small talk drains them. Surface-level opinions bore them. But depth wakes them up. That's when the quiet person suddenly says something that reframes everything, and the room goes still. So if you're someone who observes more than you speak, the real question isn't, why am I so quiet? It's, what am I protecting, processing, or perceiving? Are you watching for patterns, reading emotional undercurrents, waiting for clarity, choosing your moments, or maybe all of the above? Which parts of this felt familiar? Which moments made you think, yeah, that's me? And if you're watching this and realizing someone else fits this description, maybe now you understand them a little better too. Silence isn't empty. Sometimes it's where the most awareness lives. If this kind of psychology resonates, if you're drawn to understanding the logic behind quiet behaviors and unseen patterns, then you're in the right place. And if you feel like sharing, tell me, are you the observer or do you know one? Sometimes the people saying the least are seeing the most.